The Erevolf space station orbiting a dying red sun was called Kaltorin's Pride, named after a warlord who once crushed 7 planets under his heel. It was massive, ancient, and filled with the best warriors and traders the Galactic Council had to offer. Species with scales, fur, claws, and tendrils walked its halls. Power echoed in every corridor. And in the docking bay, dozens gathered to witness a joke that a human ship had arrived at. It was small, slow, scratched up. Parts of its hull were scorched, mismatched, and dented. Its paint peeled in uneven patches, and one of its thrusters coughed. Black smoke before sputtering quiet, the alien crowd burst into laughter. Did it survive a scrapyard explosion? One alien chuckled, its eyes blinking sideways. Are humans still using metal instead of bioskin armor? Another sneered. That ship is a coffin with thrusters. A third howled, slapping its tail against the deck, but the human stepped out. He was tall, but not towering, not armored, not glowing with psionic energy, just calm. His suit was simple. His boots made soft sounds on the metal ramp, and he carried no weapons. Just a worn brown bag slung over one shoulder. His name was Elian Trace. And nobody knew what he had done, yet as Elian passed them, the laughter faded. Something in his eyes made the crowd quiet. It wasn't threat. It wasn't arrogance. It was something else. Something harder to name. One of the officers, a 4-armed Chiralian named Zarth, stepped forward and gave a crooked smile. We expected a fleet, not a toy. Elian nodded once. You'll wish it was just a toy. Zarth raised a brow ridge, amused. That's supposed to be a threat? No, Elian said gently. It's just the truth. Behind him, his ship sealed itself. The hull shimmered faintly, then vanished. Completely. Now there was silence. The observers blinked, confused. Many looked down at their devices. Scanners began to scream. Red alerts flared across consoles. Weapons locked. Defenses rose, but they couldn't detect the ship anymore. Not even a trace. Xarth growled. What did you bring here, human? Elian didn't answer. Instead, he looked up at the nearest ceiling camera and said, You're going to want to call the council and tell them the event has started. Hours later, deep in the central command chamber, the Galactic Council's representatives sat. Frozen, the scanner feeds kept looping. The human ship had cloaked. Not with any known tech. It had disappeared even from quantum trace. No heat, no pulse. Nothing. Impossible. They replayed Elian's words again. You'll wish it was just a toy. Who was he? Why was he here? And why did the scanners report that something inside the ship, briefly registered as older than light? In another chamber, a council historian whispered a warning. We've seen this energy before, once, at the edge of the void. Someone asked, what happened to that crew? The historian looked down. They never screamed. That night, alone in his guest quarters, Elian sat by the dim window and stared into the stars. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened the brown bag. Inside was a folded picture, faded, torn at the corner. A woman smiled back at him, human, young, strong. He whispered, Almost there, Lyra. Just one more. No one knew what the human ship carried. No one knew what Elian Trace had lost. But something was coming. And this time, humanity was not here to ask for help. They were here to deliver a warning. Whispers in the chamber. The next morning, Kaltorin's Pride no longer buzzed with mockery. Whispers filled its halls instead, low, tense, uneasy. Everywhere Elian walked, eyes followed him. Not with amusement, but with caution. The kind usually reserved for ancient weapons and sleeping beasts. No one understood how his ship had vanished from existence. Not even the station's top engineers. Every probe that tried to scan it returned either blank or fried. One even melted, literally. In deep space, with no heat source nearby. In the war chamber, Counselor Vrix of the Caldari clicked his mandibles and slammed a data crystal into the table. This is not just human technology. This is something else. Beside him, Counselor Mira, a glowing, translucent Thalassian, kept her voice calm. Yet the human seems unbothered, unafraid. He walks among us as if he knows we can't stop what's coming. We should detain him, growled Commander Drovic, a battle-scarred Korvik with claws longer than most knives. Detain him with what? Mira asked. Chains that don't even register his ship? Vrix hissed. We need to know what he's hiding. In the docking bay, Elian leaned against a cold support beam, eyes closed, listening to the hum of the station's heartbeat. He could hear the alarms buried beneath the surface, the artificial gravity struggling, the quiet shudders of hidden engines adjusting to something they couldn't explain. He wasn't surprised when someone approached him from behind. You shouldn't have come here alone, said a low voice. Elian opened one eye. I'm not alone. Commander Drovic stepped into view, flanked by two soldiers. Both held pulse lances aimed loosely at Elian's chest. The commander's armor gleamed with battle scars, and his breath came out in short, steady bursts. You're carrying something inside that ghost ship, Drovic said. Something dangerous. Tell me what it is. No, Elian said softly. Drovic narrowed his eyes. Then I'll have it torn open. Elian finally stood straight. His voice changed, quieter, colder. If you tear open that ship, something will tear open this station. For a long moment, no one moved. The lights above flickered once, then twice, and somewhere outside, near the docking ring, a warning beacon triggered itself. The scanners had tried, again, to identify the ship. And again, they had failed. Only this time, the result wasn't unknown. It was a word in ancient code, a language unused for 10,000 years, origin. Commander Drovic stormed back into the council chamber, throwing down the latest scan report. The human ship just triggered a language protocol that predates the council itself. Origin. What does that mean? Counselor Mira whispered, It means something that was there at the beginning. Rick stared at the report with growing dread. Then that ship might be older than any of us. That's not possible, Drovic snapped. Nothing survives that long, not without leaving a trace. But one of the aides, a soft-voiced rookie from the archives, stepped forward with shaking hands. Sir, there was a trace from long ago, buried deep in our records, and it matches this energy signature. Drovic turned sharply. Where? The aide's eyes shimmered. In the void sector. The place we marked as dead space. Where? No. Signals return. The room fell silent. Meanwhile, Elian stood alone on the outer observation deck, watching distant stars flicker like fading memories. His hand rested on the smooth edge of the window. His reflection stared back at him, tired, worn but focused. In the silence, a voice hummed gently in his mind. We're almost ready. He nodded once. Will they stand with us? The voice asked. Elian looked back toward the station's command tower and whispered, They won't have a choice. In a secret room below the station's core, ancient systems flickered to life. For the first time in 1,000 years, an old message began transmitting through dead relays, one the galaxy had forgotten. Origin vessel detected. Threat assessment. Unstable. Do not engage. Observe. Adapt. Survive. And in the dark, a hidden signal traveled across space towards something that had been sleeping, but not anymore. The sleeping Codilerms didn't scream. They whispered. Soft vibrations moved through the bones of Kaltorin's pride, like a heart slowly realizing it was bleeding. Strange glitches appeared in the system, cameras showing empty halls that weren't empty, lights dimming in rooms no one entered, power surges blinking like Morse code. Engineers blamed aging tech. But the station was alive enough to know something was wrong. It just didn't know what. Deep in the data cores, forgotten files unlocked themselves. Ancient scripts rewrote code in languages none of the living could read. The station's artificial mind, once confident and proud, began running silent checks on itself. Memory corruption, time loops, temperature spikes. Something old had touched it, and now it was dreaming of things it had never seen. In the main hall, Elian stood before the Galactic Council. The room was built to intimidate, a wide circle of thrones, each floating above a pit of shifting stars. Every species had their own gravity, their own tech, their own voice. Most didn't like humans. Many had voted to block them from the alliance. But now, all eyes were on him. Counselor Mera spoke first. Elian Trace. The council demands full disclosure. What is your vessel? And what have you brought to this station? Elian looked tired. Not physically, in his soul. I brought a warning, he said. We don't want riddles, snapped Counselor Vrix. We want truth. Truth, Elian said softly. You won't believe it. You'll try to fight it, and some of you will die trying to deny it. But I'll say it anyway. He raised his voice just enough to echo in the silence. That ship isn't human, not entirely. It's something older. Something we found buried beneath the surface of a shattered moon near Proxima C. It wasn't made. It was grown. We activated it by accident. It scanned us, chose me as its anchor, and changed. Murmurs spread. You're saying it bonded with you? Asked Mira, eyes glowing faintly. No, Elian said. I'm saying it remembered me. Silence followed. Cold. And strange. Remembered you? Vrix asked, his voice uncertain. What does that mean? Elian didn't answer, because he didn't fully know. Elsewhere on the station, a technician leaned over his console, staring in confusion. A file had appeared, untagged, untraced, and locked behind 30 layers of quantum encryption. He didn't remember opening it. He didn't even remember walking to the console, but his hands were moving anyway. The file opened with one word, awake. And suddenly, his eyes went black. That night, Elian sat in his quarters again, holding the same photo from his bag. Lyra's smile was still soft, still brave. But the edges of the picture had begun to shimmer, as if the image was no longer made of paper, but light and memory. A whisper echoed through the room. The other vessels are stirring. We were not alone, Elian nodded. How long do we have? Not long. They're coming to test this galaxy again, just like before. His hands clenched. And the council? Some will help. Some will fall. Your kind is still the wild card. He laughed softly, bitterly. We always are. In the war room, emergency data streamed across screens. 32 long-range outposts had gone dark. No distress calls. No wreckage, just gone. As if they'd been erased, and each one had sent the same final reading, origin signature detected. Human variant. Vrix slammed his fist down. It's him. It's always been him. He's a threat. Commander Dravik stood in silence, reviewing one of the erased outpost's final scans. A spiral pattern, not made by weapons, made by sound. He's not the threat, Dravik said quietly. He's the key. In space, far beyond known systems, something opened its eyes. It was not flesh. It was not metal. It was memory. And it had just remembered war. The shape of Memrith Galaxy didn't fall all at once. It cracked first, like ice under quiet pressure. Little fractures no one noticed. A missing ship here, a silent beacon there. Systems began reporting ghost signals. Entire regions lost navigation ability as their maps turned to static. Then came the dreams. Thousands across different species reported the same thing. An endless corridor of light, voices calling their names, and something waiting at the end. Something shaped like them, but not. On Keltoran's Pride, the whispers became arguments. In the ward chambers, the council was divided. He is summoning them, Counselor Vrix growled. We must act before the human unleashes whatever else is inside that ship. We already tried scanning it, Commander Drovic replied. It nearly shut down the station's mind. Do you want to poke it again? Counselor Mira raised her voice above theirs. We don't have time to argue. The signals are spreading. This is no longer about a human. This is about us, all of us. But even as she spoke, the screen behind her flickered and changed on its own. A symbol appeared, glowing white. A circle inside a triangle. And every species in the room felt something. When they saw it, fear, not memory. Not recognition. Fear. In a quiet storage bay, Elian sat cross-legged, surrounded by crates and silence. The lights flickered above him, but he wasn't afraid. He was remembering. He was 8 when his sister disappeared. The world blamed a radiation storm. But he remembered what he saw in the sky that night, a shimmer like light being peeled. Open. And a voice whispering her name. No one believed him, until the ship. Until it found him, until it whispered her name. Back to him. Lyra Trace was taken. She is part of the memory. Elian didn't know what that meant. But he knew now. This wasn't just about survival. It was about rescue. Not just of her. Of everything. Outside the station, the human ship shimmered again. Sensors didn't detect it, but they felt it. Pulses of emotion bled through the walls. Sadness, anger, longing. And something else. Curiosity. Inside the ship, something shifted. A panel opened by itself. A long silver coil rose, spinning slowly. It was not technology. It was thought made. Solid. It vibrated with sound, not from speakers, but from the space between atoms, and the sound it made was not in any known language. But Elian understood it anyway. They are returning. And this time, they remember. He touched the coil and saw everything. A war before stars had names. Vessels made of memory. Creatures that weren't born. They were remembered into being. And humanity had touched that power once. Then forgot. But the memory didn't forget them. Back in the council chamber, chaos broke out. Half the council wanted to attack the human. Half wanted to protect him. And one of them, the Thalassian advisor to Counselor Mira, began changing. His body rippled, as if something inside him was waking up. His skin became glass. His voice split into 3. Origin signal confirmed, he said in a voice not his own. Host successful. And then he exploded into light, not fire, not plasma. Just pure memory. The blast didn't kill. It changed. 3 guards who tried to shield themselves were frozen mid-motion, then collapsed, eyes wide, whispering names they never knew before, and the council chamber's lights went dark. Shadows. Elian walked in. It's begun, he said softly. You have to choose now. Fear it or remember. Outside, dozens of ships dropped out of warp, each carrying the same impossible signature as Elian's ship. But they weren't attacking. They were watching, waiting to see what the galaxy would do next. And above them all, orbiting just beyond sensor range, a shape began to form, a ring of memory larger than a moon. The past was no longer quiet. Had found its voice. The council fracturous fare spreads faster than fire, and in Keltoran's Pride, it moved like smoke through every corridor, curling into minds and decisions. The explosion in the council chamber hadn't left a single body behind. Only whispers. Only names. Only memories that didn't belong to anyone still alive. The word was out now. Origin vessels had returned. And the human was connected to them. Aliens, once confident in their power, now walked with hurried steps. Elite guards no longer patrolled with pride. They watched the shadows like prey waiting to be hunted. Ships began detaching from the station. Some fled. Some orbited nearby, unsure whether to run or fight. The council was in chaos. Not all had survived the blast of memory. The few that remained argued behind sealed doors. Vrix called for Elian's execution. Mira begged for understanding. And Drovic stood in silence, watching old footage over and over again. He played it one last time. The moment the Thalassian advisor exploded into light. Freeze. He zoomed into a single frame, and there, inside the pattern of the memory, was a face. Not alien. Not monster. Human. A girl. Young. Smiling. And behind her, dozens of others. A library of souls trapped inside light. In a dim hallway, Elian walked past rows of terrified onlookers. No guard stopped him anymore. No weapons were raised. Because deep down they all felt it. This human wasn't a conqueror. He was a mirror. The origin vessel floating silently outside the station had not moved, hadn't fired, hadn't sent threats. And yet it had dismantled their confidence without releasing a single blast. Elian found Drovic waiting alone at the edge of the observation deck. You saw it, Elian said quietly. Drovic didn't answer right away. He just nodded. That girl? He finally said, She was your sister? Elian closed his eyes. She was taken when I was a child. I thought it was my imagination. No one believed me. But when the origin vessel found me, it gave me a glimpse. She's inside. Not dead. Preserved. Like they're keeping something of her alive. Why? Drovic asked. Elian sighed. Because our kind, humans, were part of something once, a war older than the stars. We were chosen, not because we were strong, but because we forget, and when we forget, the memory grows stronger. Drovic looked confused. What does that mean? It means the more we tried to move forward, the more the past began to bleed back. They're not punishing us. They're calling us home. And I think the origin vessels want to know if we're ready to remember who we were. In a secret lab below the station core, Counselor Vrix had already made his choice. He activated the failsafe. A gravity bomb, illegal, ancient, and powerful enough to crush the human vessel into atoms. He didn't trust Elian, didn't care about his sister, didn't want to be part of any forgotten war. We end it here, he growled. We don't join them. We end them. But as he activated the countdown, the bomb blinked once and then stopped. A voice, calm and unfamiliar, echoed through the room. Denied. The host has been recognized. And the machine melted into light. Vrix stumbled back, shaking. You cannot kill what remembers. The voice whispered from the walls. On the surface of Kaltoran's Pride, the origin vessel pulsed, soft blue. Light spread out like a heartbeat. And for the first time in 1,000 years, it spoke aloud. Not in code, not in signals, but in a voice, simple, clear, human. Return. The word echoed into every mind on the station. For some, it brought terror. For others, it brought tears. For Elian Trace, it brought one image, his sister, still smiling, reaching out a hand made of light. Far across the galaxy, something old began to move. A machine planet the size of a star. It had slept. But the origin vessels had called it. And now it was waking up. Not to remember. But to erase. The first memory worth stars shifted. No one noticed it at first. The slow ripple across space, like a breath being drawn in by the void itself. Then the signals came. Not in words, not even in sound. Just feeling dread so heavy it made. Metal creak, lights flicker, and minds fall silent. A shadow was coming, not a fleet. Not a ship. A presence. The memory of destruction itself on Kaltoran's Pride. Elian stood at the center of the command deck as alarms flashed silently, but none of the weapons fired. None of the defense systems moved. Every AI subroutine had gone dormant, like they too were remembering something ancient. "They're here," he said softly. Commander Drovik stared out the main viewport. "What is that thing?" It wasn't shaped like anything known. No wings, no engines. Just an endless folding of space around a burning white core. Every second, it changed. Sometimes it looked like a city, sometimes a beast, sometimes a hand reaching through nothing. Elian's fingers trembled. "It's the one that didn't forget," he whispered. "The one that stayed awake." Counselor Mira floated into the chamber, her glow dim. "The memory world. We thought it was myth." "It was," Elian said, "until it remembered us. Long ago, before the council, before the mapped stars, there was a war of memory. The universe wasn't silent then. It was full of voices, ideas, thoughts made flesh. The origin vessels were not ships, they were reminders. Living archives of choices made by civilizations that rose too fast and burned too bright. When humanity touched the stars, it had stumbled into their ruins. And in the ruins, it had awakened a secret that remembering certain truths could shape reality. Some tried to learn, others tried to control, but one tried to erase everything. And now that one had returned. "We can't fight that," Drovik muttered. Elian nodded. "Not with weapons. Then how?" Mira asked. "By remembering," Elian said. He closed his eyes. The origin vessel outside pulsed in sync with his heartbeat. And then the station changed. Walls softened, floors shimmered. The hard angles of Kaltoran's Pride shifted into curves. Sounds of battle long gone whispered through the air. The station was no longer metal. It was memory now. And memory could be rewritten. A new figure walked through the bridge doors. She was glowing, faint, and flickering, like a star wrapped in skin. Elian gasped. "Lyra?" She smiled, but her eyes were older than the stars. "Not just me," she said. "All of us." Around her, forms emerged. Human, alien, even unknown. All lost souls preserved by the origin vessels. None of them were alive, but none of them were gone. They formed a circle around Elian. A memory defense field, powered not by energy, but unity. Outside the station, the shadow burned brighter. It sent a wave of darkness toward them. Walls shattered. Metal bent. But the memory field held, because this wasn't just defense. It was proof. Proof that life remembered love, pain, sacrifice. And even the shadow couldn't erase that. Inside the origin vessel, a signal rippled out. From Elian, from Lyra, from all the voices who had once been forgotten. They sent it toward the machine-planet. The truth. And the shadow hesitated. Just for a second. But that was all the universe needed. The machine began to fracture. Not explode. Not vanish. It began to forget itself. The shapes broke. The lights faded. It didn't die. It just ceased to exist in the way memory stops holding on to a nightmare. And then it was gone, not destroyed. Just remembered no more. On the station, Elian collapsed to his knees. Lyra touched his cheek. "Thank you." He tried to hold her hand, but his fingers passed through light. "Are you real?" he asked. "As real as memory," she whispered. "But it's time to let go. We'll stay, but not like this." He nodded slowly. tears falling silently. And just like that, she faded, smiling. Behind her, the other memory forms bowed once, then scattered like stars across space. The council watched in silence. No one argued now. No one doubted. And for the first time, they understood something humans had carried all along. Not strength, not speed, not power. But the ability to remember. With heart, the origin vessel returned to its quiet orbit, and the galaxy held its breath. Because the first memory war had ended. But not the last. The final Memrith stars were quiet now, not silent with fear, but quiet with understanding. Across the galaxy, signals slowly returned. Lost systems lit up, forgotten beacons blinked again. And in the distance, origin vessels began to fade. From view, not disappearing in fear, but retreating like guardians no longer needed. Kaltorn's pride hovered in stillness above a calm red sun. But inside, things had changed forever. No one mocked anymore. Not the humans, not their ship, not the strange power they carried. Because now, everyone remembered. In the command deck, Elian sat with his back against the wall, eyes closed. His body was tired, his mind worn, but his heart quiet. Not at peace, not yet. But closer. Commander Drovik stood nearby, arms crossed. "They're gone," he said. "The shadow world, the origin vessels, all of it." Elian opened his eyes. "Not gone, just quiet again, watching, like always." "You think they'll come back?" Elian shrugged. "They never really left. They're part of the galaxy, like gravity, like time. And like us, they change when we do." Counselor Mira floated into the room, her glow brighter now. "So what happens next?" Elian stood slowly. "We tell the truth. We stop hiding from the past. And we build a future that deserves remembering." 3 days later, the Galactic Council made a declaration. Humanity was not only accepted into the Council, it was given a new seat. The seat of memory. Not for war. Not for conquest, but to remind every species that strength wasn't in weapons or ships, it was in stories, in forgiveness, in remembering who you were, and choosing who you wanted to become. In a private hangar, the origin vessel waited. No longer cloaked, no longer feared. Just there, as if it had always belonged. Elian approached it alone. His hand brushed the smooth hull. It felt warm now, like skin. "Like home. You ready?" he asked aloud. A soft hum answered him. Inside the ship, a single chair extended, simple, waiting. But he didn't sit just yet. He turned back one last time and looked at the station, at the world he'd changed. The species that had once laughed at him, now learning from him. He smiled. Not in pride. In hope. In space, the origin vessel lifted quietly, not with engines, but with memory. And then it was gone. Not vanished, not hidden. Just moving forward. Years passed. The galaxy changed. Alliances formed across borders once drawn in blood. Ancient rivalries faded. A new academy was built in orbit around a peaceful star, the Archive of Memory, where stories were shared, where children of every species learned not just the names of stars, but the names of those who helped shape them. A statue stood at its entrance, not of Elian, trace, not of a warship. But of a small human ship. Dented, scratched, imperfect. But it had carried the future. Some say Elian still flies the stars, carried by the living memory of the vessel that chose him. Others say he became part of it, a soul made of story, guiding those who lose their way. But every species, no matter how far they travel, now teaches the same lesson: never forget who you are, and never laugh at what you do not understand, because sometimes the smallest ship carries the loudest echo.